Day 43, working on the cure for the terminators. So I've been busy trying to figure out all this kind of super badass time stuff. Getting into electrogravitics, really understanding how scalar waves are applicable, and trying to understand much more advanced type of scalar visible light technology. My dive back into electrogravitics has me trying to really truly understand how to read and articulate all of these different types of formulas, whether they be for electrokinetic or electrogravitic tech. What seems to be the linchpin is this notion of this concept of space goo. So they don't call it that, but these two symbols here with the little, the not symbol as they call it, the void symbol, for magnetic and electric, the permittivity of free space and the permeability of free space. They're just basically throwing words around in order to make it more confusing when you're just talking about it. I'm pretty sure that's actually the reason they're doing that now. Folks, it's a time war. I think that's what it is. They messed with their timeline. Like at this point, that's what I suspect is going on. They've manipulated the timeline, and they did it using the scalar wave tech because it's temporal. You can modify it's time, space-time. So they're modifying time waves. They must have done that. I think that's what's been going on since World War II. I've also now discovered something called scalar visible light, or scalar white light. This is going to be the premise for a new technology I call angel tech. Basically, it's a psionic purifying light that you can actually blast into the retina of a human being and destroy what's called, it causes a quantum neuronic barrier breakdown. And what it does is that on a quantum level in our neurology, in our brain, it resets the quantum spins into a harmonic state and snap forces them to allow pure mental clarity. It removes neurological corruption. And that neurological corruption is what causes these kind of psychological, mind breakdowns, like these mental breakdowns, these traumas that are these trauma responses and stuff. It's basically an instant anti-mind control device, and it allows to the dissolving of psychological demonic possessions, if you want to call it that. I mean, we're talking about psychological alternate personas, these multiple personality disorder entities that are that's what demons are. They're just other personas within a mind that has become fractured. Well, what this does, this breaks down the fractures. The fractures are established by neuronic barriers, and it breaks those down by dissolving the mimetics that keep those barriers up. The mimetics are basically these quantum spins within our neuronic structure, and that makes it so that the demons no longer can exist within the back of our mind. And that's where they live. They live in the very back of our retinal mindscape of our visual cortex. And so that's what's going on. So this type of technology is literally able to douse or extinguish these shadow creatures that exist within the back of our minds. And check this out, flux capacitors. I figured out how those flux capacitors are real. Because I mean, if scalar wave technology isn't just electromagnetic, but instead it's space-time, then it's modifying time-space, right? We're talking about something that's changing time. All of this technology creates flux fields. That's the terminology that they're using. See, this magnetic flux density. And so we're modifying magnetic and electric flux. And that flux is basically flow. This is like the twisting and turning. It's torsion. And that torsion is the tension or the tensors. Here are this is the mathematic for the tensors. And that PG, see that? That's the total density of gravitational mass. Gravity is space-time flux. This is the secret sauce formula right here, where we're talking about the exact formula where we have the electric field and the magnetic field, the cross product of the electric field and the magnetic field, times what I call the space goo effect, which is just the drag of space-time itself. And so when you get that cross product, and then you can get what's called the pointing vector. For some reason, they have the letter S for pointing vector. I guess that's space. Maybe that's why they have it for S. They never explain this. They never explain it, and it's just like we'll just omit that. It's always there somewhere. But it's these tensors. That's where it's at. These space-time tensors are really where understanding how the electrogravitic tech works in the first place. It's done using helixes instead of spirals. So instead of like a monodirectional spiral, it's a stereodirectional helix. Things like inertial dampeners exist, where they're basically, they call them tensor coils. They have another name, but I don't care about the name, because it's a tension coil for space-time tension, and it basically grips into space-time, and it does that by creating a cross product of the electric field and magnetic field together. And so you got your electric field flowing through the cable, but then that's also generating a magnetic field simultaneously. The magnetic fields are canceling each other out because it's a double helix coil, and that creates a tension. That tension is then gripping space, because space, check this out, has there's a charge to space. Space-time has a charge, so it's not just like neutral, and that means and space itself is positively charged. It is a positively charged void, and so that means you can impart impulse upon space-time using a charge, and that's how this is working. And so that is the pointing vector for space, for manipulating space-time, and that's why all of these calculations for performing electrokinetic field vector, force vector manipulation work when trying to create electrogravitic anti-gravity technology. Not just anti-gravity, gravimetric impulse tech. To create the light that I was talking about, the scalar visible light, you need something called an arc lamp. And there's a couple ways to do that, but one of them is to create a tube that has, it's a psionic plasma tube that combines an electric and sonic field. It creates sonic vibrations, like kinetic vibrations, because sonic is sound, is just basically physical vibrations. And then you can create, and then you can also create an arc, which is an electric arc within this tube, and that'll create the light in question that you need in order to blast their retinas with it. That retinal blast is kind of like it's a neuralizer. It's basically a neuralizer from that TV show and movie, Men in Black. But it's not a regular neuralizer like the Men in Black one. It's going to be a very specific type of neuralizer, because I think the Men in Black neuralizer isn't a standard issue neuralizer. I think that's something very specific. But the one that I'm going to be making basically is capable of getting rid of these particular mind control entities, mind control agents that have been installed using trauma memory invocation within the brain. Something about the 808 bass music that they use triggers or empowers or reinforces these mental structures too. So it's not just the light. There seems to be some sort of aspect to the sound to it, and so there's music that you can listen to with particular beats and frequency patterns that disrupt those mind control agent installations, that make it so that they can't actually, they can't control your mental core. It's like anti-spirals, negative spin entities. These negative spin these anti-spiral beings that are trying to stop spiral energy from manifesting within our minds. At first I was like, well, I guess they're just parasites. They have a reason they're sucking our energy, but that's not what's going on. It's not about that. They're literally just like that. They're just entities that do not like spirals, and so they're constantly stopping that. That's it. It's that simple. There's no logic to it. They're not logical. So I started a wiki, and I'm going to now create a Wikipedia article, like an entire wiki devoted to explaining all of the technology so that we can make this stuff and so that we can totally save the world, because it's a time war. They screwed up our timeline. I think that's what they did. At this point, I'm very confident that's what they did. And we're going to save the world. That's it. We're just going to do it. We're just going to save the future. Bottom line. Welcome to the future, everybody.